What is going on, everybody? My name is Eric, and you're listening to the Unlockables podcast, the story of video games, the people that play them, and the memories made along the way. Welcome to the official first episode, and I'm not going to waste too much time boring you with all the boring stuff because I'm very excited to have a very, very special guest for this very first, technically first, not episode 0, but episode 1 episode of the Unlockables podcast. It is my very good friend. He was voted most likely to kill chaos in the graduating class of 2000, whatever class he graduated in. It is my good friend Keith from the Main Quest podcast. Keith, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really good, and now I'm sweating because if this is the first episode, I have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders now.
That just means the show has nowhere to go but down from here, obviously.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. No, I'm doing really good, and honestly, it's really good to hear your voice because it has been a very, I was on hiatus, but man, you have been gone.
I sequestered myself in a bunker in the middle of the United States and was just missing, but you managed to pull me out for your year-end episode with all the Game Awards, so
that's true. I felt really, you don't know how great I felt about that. I was just I'm yeah, I could get these guys and I could get these guys. I'm sounding like a real asshole right now. And I'm yeah, all right. I'm but I gotta get Eric. I'm gotta get you back in the game somehow. And then you were yeah, I'll do that. I'm that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. Everybody else I could just care less about. No, I'm kidding.
Jeez. No, don't put a target on my back. Come on. Everyone's gonna listen to this. Come on. All of our normal friend group, and everyone's gonna hate me then. So but yeah, what you don't know about that is I actually charge by the minute now because I gotta make some money. So you'll be getting that bill in the near future. So don't worry about that. I gotta get paid for my speaking arrangements now.
I wonder what that pending charge has been on my credit card bill for the past month and a half.
Speaking of which, yeah, what are the last 4 digits and what's your maximum amount I can charge on that?
6222.
Oh, Jesus.
And no.
Listen, now when you get a bunch of charges from you're gonna get a bunch of charges from the Middle East or something, and that's not my fault. So don't judge that on me. But I'm
pretty sure I get spam calls from fuck, what do I want to say? Not Arabian. Well, yeah, Saudi. I'm pretty sure I get spam calls from Saudi princesses every 2 days or something like that. So that's really not a.
It's gotten
somebody's got my information.
I've noticed too. It got worse when the new year rolled over. Towards the end of the year, I wasn't getting as many spam calls, and then when the year rolled over, all of a sudden there's 14 calls a day from a random number in Northwestern Illinois. I'm what is happening right now?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you. Be the first to congratulate you here, because you are now a married man.
Oh, stop!
And I feel I texted you a little bit before you left, or maybe the day of, and I was as long as I've known you, you have been getting married.
That's been my default status. It has.
Yes. I'm I feel I've heard about the wedding more than anything else. And I felt I was also getting married, but I had none of that pressure on me at all. But yeah, it's a long time coming, and proud of you guys. But also, you are also now on a list somewhere also. So that also makes sense that you are receiving these weird calls all of a sudden.
Absolutely makes sense. Thank you. I should be the one saying thank you as well for all. I probably bitched you about that wedding more than anything else, and I was just Keith, I can't do this. I'm stressed out. But you talked me through it. You talked me away from the ledge more than once.
I did
probably.
My best.
Yeah, you did. And also, of course, I have to thank my now beautiful wife for somehow managing to put up with me. I still ask her every day. It's me, really? Why? I don't know what you see, but all right, I managed to get one to like me, which is a miracle in and of itself.
I talk about video games on the internet, right?
Well, I whenever she sees me texting, she's like, "Who are you texting?" I'm well, I'm talking to Keith, and she's like, "So you and Keith have a bromance now, right?" And I was I guess, sure, if you want to label it that, just don't be jealous, please.
I was gonna say, I understand if she's jealous. It happens.
Yeah. She's seen you one time when she saw you on that video call and she came in and she's like, "Oh, Keith's that dude in the dark room that wears glasses." I'm that's a pretty accurate assumption of who Keith is. It's very accurate.
Man, okay. the lighting is better in here now.
It
okay?
is. I'm like, that's all you saw of him? She's like, yeah, he had like hair and glasses and like, I think a little bit of like a beard, and it was very dark. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
It's funny because I was on Dave's podcast. Am I allowed to shout out his podcast? You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love Dave.
So yeah, I was on Tales from the Backlog. I'm not sure when that's airing, but when we were recording, I was not really prepared for like video or anything like that. So I didn't have like any of these lights on. And I was also wearing a black hoodie and I had the hood up.
Oh,
so I was
jeez.
just like this like mysterious figure or whatever.
Like you're working for Anonymous.
And I had to like, that was the first time like we actually met face to face. And I had to be like, yeah, dude, like I'm not like trying to be a serial killer or anything like that. It's just dark in here, and also it's cold, so I got the hood up or whatever.
Dave was like, I didn't realize I booked the Unabomber on my podcast. It's kind of very concerning. So, but yeah, like I said, I appreciate you and I appreciate you coming on. You were the first person to ever listen to the Side Questing podcast when I put it out. You messaged me and you're like, hey, I like your show. And I thought to myself, that's impossible because the show is terrible. So that was, and we've kind of been friends ever since. So, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring you on and just kind of talk about the stuff that you do and your love of video games, which is obviously what the show is all about. So if you'd be willing to, even though it's a bit of a formality, tell me a bit about your show. You run the Main Quest podcast over on your feed.
Okay, let's not sound like a robot. So
read the cue cards.
Right. So yeah, I'm the host of a retro gaming podcast. I've been told it is the #1 retro gaming podcast by, one person maybe.
Undisputed.
And what?
Undisputed. #1.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. I think Eric was that one person. And I essentially am, I guess, documenting my entire history of gaming, essentially, from when I was just a wee little child, just a tiny Keith, all the way up to kind of the asshole Keith that's talking to you right now. I do cover some modern games here and there, so it's not all specifically retro, but I'd say there's like a good 80-20 kind of split going on there as far as the content goes. And essentially at the end of every episode, I try and recommend the game, see if I can recommend the games and let you guys know if you should try them out or not.
I like how you do that too. Is something that you and I talk about very often is we don't like the way that they scored games or review games via score, which leads to games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 being the #2 video game of all time. So, like you said, you decided to use your podcast to document your gaming journey since your childhood. What has that experience been like for you, taking that walk down memory lane and playing all these old games that you've very impressively managed to dig out of the dredges of your memory, which is awesome because I can't remember what I did last week. I assume it was coming home from Mexico. So what has that experience been like?
Well, that list took forever to put together, probably a good 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And my brother actually helped me put the list together because, of course, I can't remember every single game. And so there was that. And obviously, like, a lot of people like to go back and play the games that they grew up with because of nostalgia. Sometimes you just, that's what kind of video games are in a lot of ways. They're an escape, right? Even if you're not playing for nostalgia, like, you can play a new video game just to kind of get away from life for a few hours or whatever. And so I was, kind of wanted to do that anyway. And at the time, I was writing and reviewing like concerts and stuff like that. I was like, well, I could do that for video games. I could do a blog or whatever and talk about these old video games. And then I decided to do the podcast instead a couple of years later down the road. And I really, genuinely love doing the podcast. Even if the game that I'm playing I'm not too hot on. So like a little behind the scenes. For the most part, I go into the game blind. Like, so let's say I'm going to start a new game. I'm going to start a new episode. I play the game first. And I use blind here loosely because obviously I played it as a child. But some of these like more obscure games, I don't really have a vivid memory of. And I'm getting to a point in the podcast right now where I'm going to start actually having a lot more personal histories with them. So that section of the podcast is going to be a little longer than it has been. And so as I sit there and play the game, I take notes. I write down, essentially exactly how it's played, how it feels to play, the graphics, music, etc. And then once that's done, once the game is finished, then I go and research the game. I kind of do a relatively deep dive into the history of the game, and especially if it's a well-noted developer, I'll kind of talk about the developer as well, just to give some context, because let's say I absolutely hate the game, right? It's so easy for everybody just to dunk on a game just for the sake of, because people love just being negative,
Especially about video games.
But I don't want that to come across as not, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to misjudge the game because I
get what you're trying to say. You don't want it to like unfairly influence your opinion on the game you're having by reading someone else's opinion, right? Something like that.
Well, that too. Like I'll get into that in a second. As far as so the reason why I do the deep dives into the history of the game after I'm done playing it is, I guess, to kind of talk myself off of a ledge, so to speak, as far as like, because then I also, not only am I giving the listener context, I'm giving myself context. Because to be honest, I don't know anything about video games. I know just as much as you do, dude. And it's not until I actually like start reading about stuff. And that's the other thing that I really love about the podcast too, is that I'm just learning about all this stuff that I just don't know about. I'm learning something new almost every time I record an episode. So I give that bit of like historical context to the game as well, because honestly, yeah, it's great to just review a game in a vacuum, but games don't come out in a vacuum. You need that context when you're talking about a sequel to a game or a long-running franchise, or maybe a famous director goes on to go do something like Hideo Kojima or something, goes from Metal Gear Solid to Death Stranding. There's context there. You need to give context no matter what. So I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the things that I really try to put in the forefront of my show. And I've really kind of, I think in a couple episodes, you can hear me kind of like fighting myself over like, should I recommend this game? Shouldn't I? Like, it's important, but also it kind of sucks. So there's also that, there's kind of a push and pull with me, because I never go into an episode knowing if I'm going to recommend it or not. I never put that down anywhere. So yeah, I was talking to somebody else recently, and I do the show all by myself. I host it, I edit it, I advertise it, all that other stuff.
Just very impressive, by the way.
Thank you.
And a lot of work, as I'm finding out.
It really is, yeah. And somebody asked me, they're like, how do you stay motivated to do that? And it's just because I genuinely love doing it. And I love it. Like I said, even if I hate the game, I like the fact that I was at least able to play it, you know? And I don't think, I think a lot of people unfortunately take me way too seriously, or they might take what I say like to heart. And
well, how dare you hate the thing that they love and have an opinion about it? How dare you?
But then when I love something, I don't hear any comments about it, which is like, okay, like I think I looked at what I did last year and I recommended like at least 8 or 9 more games than I did not recommend. So I was a lot more positive than I was negative, but the way I get like emails and comments and stuff and messages, you would think I hated every single game that I talked about. I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did. That was great. So, and that kind of leads into my next series of questions now. So you've been doing the show for about 2-3 years now. Is it going into your third year?
Yeah, coming up on 2 years in April.
Okay. So, that's a long time. That's longer than most shows even last. So in doing all this, and I love your approach, by the way, because I think going into a game blind is really the best way to experience it. And I've come across this myself. One of the more modern examples of that is I recently last year got around to playing Undertale. And let me just preface this before saying anything else. Like, Undertale is a fantastic game. Like, that game is wonderful. It's so lovingly designed. It's so unique. But I feel like I had been blasted since that game came out in 2015 or 2014 or whenever it was about how great the game was. Like, it's just a nonstop barrage of like, this game is a modern masterpiece. It's an instant classic. And I feel like that kind of warped my perception going into that game and kind of took away from some of my enjoyment about it. So yeah. I think your approach to the way that you do that is absolutely fantastic, to be able to play the game as blind as you can first and then do the research afterwards. I think that's fantastic. So in your 2 years now doing the show, is there anything you've kind of learned about your personal tastes? Is there anything that you learned, like maybe some preconceived notions you had going in that were proven wrong? Was there any kind of game that you expected to be awful and you actually ended up enjoying? Was there something that you thought you'd enjoy and you really hated? Have you experienced kind of anything like that? I know it's kind of like multiple questions rolled into one, so you can pick and answer that however you want.
So I'm just, as far as my tastes go, something that I realized, I'm going to sound like a real old man, and that's okay. I think I've talked about this on my show before, or maybe talked about it on another show. But as I'm going through my library, and not even just for the show specifically, sometimes I'll just dip into a game that I just want to play, and that's the thing too. I do all the games that I cover, I'm covering them chronologically, so I'm doing them basically console by console. So sometimes I'm like, man, I just want to play Mega Man X, because I play Mega Man X maybe like 2 or 3 times a year.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to be covering that game for like another 2 years probably.
Oh man.
So it's like stuff like that where it's like I dip into these games that I know that I really love, and that when I cover, it's going to be really hard to talk about them objectively. I recently had to do that with Earthbound on another episode that I'm doing with somebody else. And it was difficult. That stuff is difficult. And the thing that I have learned over the past 2 years is that as far as my tastes go, I don't really care about modern games that much. They all seem... So here's the thing. I've played so many different games on my show already. I have played puzzle games. I've played platformers. I've played shooters. I've played JRPGs. I've played beat 'em ups, shmups, all different types of genres, and those genres still exist today. But a lot of, I guess I should retract that statement slightly. I don't very much care for AAA gaming at all. It's all just seems like it's been the cookie cutter, same type of games for the past, I don't know, 8 years, probably.
It feels very soulless and more corporatized as the industry becomes more corporatized. It really does feel that way.
Yeah. It's a great thing that gaming has become as synonymous as it is, but it is also kind of hurting what's being put out. I was going to add something, but I don't remember.
Okay, I didn't know if you're waiting for me to go or not. So, no, yeah, I agree with you. And that kind of, you actually answered like my next question I had for you was, I was going to ask you if doing the main quest had increased your appreciation for the retro days of gaming, or if it made you appreciate kind of how far we'd come right now. And it definitely seems like that's kind of what it is. It's you appreciate the older days more. And I have similar opinions to you about kind of where we currently are. And while I think that games today have never been better, there are also more problems than ever before. And that's something that we as people who enjoy this hobby and have voices in the community have to kind of square with as we go forward.
Yeah, when it comes to like the modern gaming industry and stuff like that, I think people misconstrue my thoughts and opinions as like being hostile towards the games that are like the games themselves. And I'm like, the games are fine. Like, I don't care about the games. It's just all the stuff that's coming out behind them and who's putting them out and why it's being put out just seems so just, I don't know. It's going to sound really schlocky when I say it, but like corporate greed or whatever, you know, it just doesn't seem genuine. Like people want to be actually making these games.
Right.
And I think, you know, you and I did Hades together on my podcast, and we talked a lot about Supergiant. We talked a lot about kind of where they came from in the mid-aughts. And that's just, that is what game development is missing, I think, is just a lot of love and care. But at the same time, you know, there's a lot of people that do get, and I'm absolutely guilty of this. They do give a lot of developers, AAA developers and stuff, a lot of shit, especially when a game comes out broken. And yes, that is extremely frustrating, but man, have I just played some very broken retro games. And you know what? Those games aren't getting fixed. And you know what? They didn't get fixed ever. They just released them and they were just exactly as how you play them.
Right, but at least back then, they kind of had the excuse that they were still like figuring it out, right? We've been doing this now for like 50, 60 years. You'd think that we would have arrived at a point where most of this stuff, and I know technology keeps advancing, but most of this stuff, especially in the corporate world where everything gets very assembly line automated and like you do your job and everyone just has their role in the assembly line. Back then they were doing things like, you know, putting chips in mayonnaise to get an extra like couple kilobytes out of them or whatever they could to smash more. It was really the Wild West. They were just doing crazy stuff to try and get this stuff to work and ship it out the door. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Let me ask you this. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but with how technology has advanced, at least developers are able to patch the games.
That's true.
Everybody complains about patches and whatever. And it's like, well,
never used to be that way. We never used to be that lucky.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like you would just get a broken game. You would pay $60 for it and it would just be broken. But you could pay $60 now. And yeah, it's going to suck for like a week or two, but you can come back to it and it will probably be perfectly fine.
This is true. So let me ask you this, and it goes back to the nature of the way your show is structured. So you said you're doing your personal journey of the games you played throughout your life from the NES. So let's go like 5-10 years down the road, right? Like, is there a point where your main quest comes to an end, that you get to a point where you say, I've completed all this? And if so, where do you kind of go from there?
Yeah, I've thought about this.
I thought of it while I was talking to you. I was like, I wonder if he's like considered this at all, because we've talked about this a lot, the way you do your show. So
right. I only plan on going up and through my library of Xbox 360 games. So I'm going to probably stop at around, that would probably be like 2011. Because that's kind of when there was a period of my life where I just wasn't doing any gaming. So it was like late 2010 to like early 2015 where I just really wasn't playing anything. So I'm like, that's a pretty good area to stop, or pretty good year to stop at. So obviously I just talked about we just covered Hades or whatever. So obviously I'm still covering games past that point. Mm-hmm. But like, as far as the mainline show goes, yeah, I just plan on going up and through that library. And when I started the podcast, I very much went in with, yes, that will be the hard cutoff. This podcast is finite. It's not going to go on forever. And I think I'm still just kind of going to go with that. Because again, like, I'm not a journalist. I've never worked in the game industry. I've never talked about games professionally, even though I have been paid for this podcast. So technically, as scary as it sounds, I am a professional podcaster.
Oh, you have arrived, sir.
Because one thing I learned in school is that when you are freelancing and you finally get paid for the work that you do, you have officially become a professional. And I think it still holds true with podcasting. People have given me money, and it's very weird. But
we know they're just buying your opinions on the games that they love. So I mean, you just come out and say it now. It's fine.
So yeah, I don't see myself going past that. And honestly, if I had started this podcast when I wanted to, it would be done already.
Oh, wow.
Or at least pretty close to being done. Because I wanted to do this back in like 2016.
Yeah, it would be. Wow. Well, I'm glad you definitely waited, because then we probably would have missed each other. That would have been a shame. So,
yeah, probably.
It's like, yeah, I guess I probably would have been fine, but
well, that's the thing though, dude. Like, I didn't listen to any gaming podcast when I started this. I listened to two, and they're like larger gaming podcasts. It's Retronauts and Giant Bomb.
Ah, yes.
Which I will call out because I kind of stealing their format a little bit. I've talked about it on my show already.
Everybody borrows from everybody. It's fine.
There's not a single solitary genuine idea out there on the internet at all. So yeah, so it's kind of a mashup of those two in the way they do things. So those were that was pretty much it. And I was talking to my ex at the time, and I was like, yeah, I just don't like the way I'm going to do it. I just feel like there's not anything, there's probably nothing else out there like it. And then once I started kind of getting myself out to the ecosystem, I'm like, oh, like, there are podcasts like mine. It's like a dime a dozen. And some of them I'm now like really good friends with. So, right. And they're much better than me at it. I should be selling my podcast, but there's a lot of people that have been doing it a lot longer than me and know a lot more than I do.
That's something I discovered too.
Grateful.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm still new to this interviewing thing. I apologize.
No, you're all good. I was just going to say it. I'm grateful to at least be friends with them and be able to talk and share ideas back and forth with them.
The people
Go ahead,
the people are definitely the best part. I agree. And I discovered the same thing too when Tom and I were discussing the side questing podcast. I'm like, Tom, I want to come up with like a thing that like people can go back to and listen on like road trips, and they talk about like the stuff that matters in video games. And I even picked out the name, and I was like, I got a name that nobody else has, and sure enough, like 4 of the people have the name, and sure enough, like I'm like, oh, my show's like one of like 50 shows that also do the same thing. So
dude, it's the worst.
You don't realize how big it is until you get into it. But
I had like an existential crisis like 3 episodes in of like, I need to change everything.
one of the things that we do talk about, and I'm kind of shuffling the order of the questions on your list here, so sorry.
I'm not even looking at them, to be honest.
Perfect. Gonna throw a curveball
looking at your
at you.
beautiful aura. You're nice.
My glowing, like, yeah, it's terrible.
Did you put a skin
back
mask on? Or not a skin mask? God, you're not fucking Leatherface.
All my wedding shit back there on that desk that I was conveniently hiding out of frame.
Oh my God. How many Funko Pops did you get for your wedding?
0 actually, but Taylor pre-ordered. So we always try to. Now we're going off on a big tangent. We always try to pre-order the My Hero Academia ones because that's a show that my wife and I love to. I'm glad she doesn't listen to this show. I'd be fucked.
What did you say?
My wife and I. So she always tries to keep up on those, and she forgot that she ordered like the next wave of them, and so all of a sudden, just like 13 Funko Pops like showed up at my house, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, there's like $250 on my credit card now." I'm like, "Great, that's awesome, that's awesome." So, but yeah, what I was gonna ask is, you and I spend a lot of time on Instagram. We talk about just kind of like you mentioned we more often than not like lament the state of the modern video game industry.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you. Because it's very difficult. Games aren't like they used to be. You're not playing, like, you can't go back and do what you do on more modern games because the game as it originally came out, like you said, patches and stuff, doesn't exist anymore. The original state of that game doesn't exist, and especially for live service games that change, like, just throwing it out there, Fortnite for one example. So imagine in like 10 years or so, there is a Keith Jr. that lives in like Idaho or something. And he hears your show and he wants to go on his own main quest and play the games that he played growing up, which is the era we're growing up in now, just for an example. Do you think that's possible given the way things are going right now? Or do you think you have to truly go back further to do something like that?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. There's so many games that are already lost to history. I mean, side tangent here. When is this coming out? When is this episode coming out?
Probably Wednesday. So like 3 days.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Relatively recent.
This will be relevant then. Yeah. What was I going to say? Okay, I'm starting over. Cut all that out.
Yeah, it's fine. Fix it in post.
So there's a lot of games that are already lost to history because just recently I covered a game, a Disney game, Mickey Mouse Capade, and I even think maybe the one that's out already, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Those games have like no development history. I could not find anything. And it's not just like, when I do research, it's not like I just go to Wikipedia like a lot of podcasts do. I actually do my best to research stuff. I have tons of books on like gaming, and a lot of the games I cover, once I start my research, I open up like all of these books just to see if the game is in there, just to see if I can get any type of quotes or any little nuggets of knowledge that I can throw in there. And there are games that are just, you don't know anything about them. Like you look at Castlevania, nobody knew who worked on that game up until like 2 or 3 years ago. And so, is it going to get harder? I think it's going to be more difficult. The most difficult thing is going to be playing the game as how it was initially released, right? That's going to be the most difficult part. The history's already going to be there because look at how well documented everything is now.
That's true.
It's that information's going to be out there. I mean, again, go listen to the Hades episode Eric and I did. You and I talked about when that game was in, what do you want to call it?
Early access?
Early access, when it didn't really have much going for it when it was in early access. It wasn't complete yet. So that stuff is very well documented. Shout out to NoClip, which I watched their documentary on Hades.
They do awesome job with it. They have a bunch of different documentaries from people up there. That's yeah.
Yeah, they do an awesome job. And that was one of the sources I used as far as the history goes. So, I think people will be able to read about and hear about what those games used to be like before whatever incarnation that you play,
Mm-hmm.
But not having an internet connection is an interesting thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can go buy, well, in the year of our Lord 2022, you can still go out and buy a physical game, not have the internet, and you will forever be playing that version of the game until you connect to the internet, right? So somebody out there who bought Cyberpunk when it released, it doesn't have an internet connection, is just going to have that little gem of history right there, just that broken ass fucking game. And probably never, I mean, obviously those people will know, like there's an update or whatever, but I mean,
there have to be people that are selling version 1.0 copies of that game for lots of money, right? I feel like there have to be
$10,000. It's gonna be rare. Watch.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, that's gonna be a whole new era of gaming collection. This is the version 1.5.2 3.4 patch. Yeah, buy it now.
Yeah, buy it up now. We're telling you've heard it here first on the Unlockables, the first episode. Go out and get your copies of Cyberpunk, because those things, you're gonna be rich in 2047.
Not here to give unsolicited financial advice, but you should probably listen to us.
But so yeah, I mean, there's ways. I think it might be difficult, but I don't think it's going to be impossible.
Especially in an era where it seems like the big corporations, and this news just dropped too, so it is relevant to how they're going to be shutting down the 3DS and Wii U eShops. And everybody's pretty pissed about that, because here we go again, like Nintendo is making their stuff more difficult to access, more difficult to play, and just so they can like throw it on whatever their subscription service is or charge more money for it. So it really does seem like that the idea that the history of these video games is not as important as finding a way to exploit them to continually like make a revenue stream. And I think that's really a shame, because and there's no other, and this is something that I consider very close to my heart. Like, video games are, for all intents and purposes, like a work of art. So just imagine every time somebody made a copy of the Mona Lisa, they replaced the original Mona Lisa with like the new copy. Like, that's stupid. No other type of art works that way.
Or they let you, like in the case of Nintendo, when you walk into the room with the Mona Lisa, they only like show you part of it, and they're like, "Well, you're gonna have to come back in like 6 more months to see the rest."
And then they take it and they put it in a different museum and say, okay, like now to get into this museum, you have to pay us like an extra $30 a month or something like that.
Right.
So
and they'd be like, well, why is that? Well, it's a new museum. So,
and then for some reason, like the new Mona Lisa is not really like the same quality as the original one.
It's super pixelated.
Yeah. That
when she runs at like 20 frames per second. I don't even know how that happens with a painting, but
that lake just looks like one water tile duplicated 40 times. So,
and that's it, man. That's the thing with modern Nintendo. I feel, and this is a personal thing probably, but there's probably other people that feel the same way I do. I had been out of the Nintendo ecosystem since the GameCube up until I got my Switch.
That's a long time.
Yeah,
a lot. There's a lot that's happened.
Yes, Eric, I was so excited to have a Switch. I was like, man, look at all these games that they got with the Wii U. Look at all these games that they got with the Wii. And I've had exes that had a Wii, so it's like I played some games, but I wouldn't say I played Wii Sports. Let's just say I played Wii Sports because that's what they were playing.
Yep.
So I guess like technically I've played the Wii, but also I haven't. But dude, I was so excited, and I was like, yeah, they've got like this awesome online service. I can just go buy like games a la carte. Fantastic. And then I got the Switch, and there just hasn't been anything. And I'm personally, like, there are only 3 Switch games worth getting. Maybe I'll be kind and say 4. And that's Smash Brothers, Metroid Dread, Mario Odyssey, and Breath of the Wild. Like, those are the games.
That surprises me. I didn't think you were going to have Breath of the Wild on there.
How long has it been? 5 years?
Since that game. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, since, yeah.
5 years since the release of the Switch.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, there's no content, first-party content. I mean, yeah, people are going to be like, well, what about Animal Crossing? It's like, well, from what I've heard, from the Animal Crossing fans, they don't like it. They just kind of live with it. Like, they just tolerate it because it's the new Animal Crossing.
For one brief moment in time, though, when we all thought we were going to be wiped out by a deadly virus, that game united the world in peace, though, Keith. So, I mean...
it really benefited from when it came out, honestly. Yeah.
We couldn't ruin our lives with actual financial stress because nothing was open, so we had to go in debt to a raccoon to feel some sense of normalcy. It was comfort, it was comfort.
Like, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. And like, yeah, everybody like, well, Mario Kart's on there, and Mario Maker and whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but those were Wii U games. Mm-hmm. Also, that version of Mario Maker's, the Switch version's awful.
I had it for Wii U. I never got the Switch version, so.
It just doesn't work the same. I played the one my brother had a Wii U, so I played Mario Maker on the Wii U, and it works because you can use the pad and look at the TV at the same time, whereas you can't do that with the Switch. Mm-hmm. So, again, the Wii U, I've said this many times, is the superior console. You can fight me about it.
I've always held that, and it seems now that like, with the death of the Wii U imminent, that people have been coming out and saying like, "Oh, I have such fond memories of the Wii U," which isn't true. I've always defended that console. I thought that it was pretty good for what it was. I mean,
I think it's weird that there's all of a sudden all these defenders for the Wii U, and I'm like,
that's never been
you
the
guys in 2014, yeah, right. 2015. Like, there was none of you. Like, when the Switch came out, how many memes did you see of people throwing their Switches or their Wii U's in the garbage?
I didn't see the memes, but I knew people were happy to move on. That's for sure.
Like, by 2018, there were people posting pictures of like their Wii U's with like 3 inches of dust surrounding it. And now all of a sudden everybody's just like, oh, the Wii U's good. But I mean, I guess they're not crying for the console. They're crying for the service, right?
Right.
Because NSO is trash.
Right. Well, you know what's going to happen now, though, is that somebody is going to go now that the store's shutting down and buy literally every single Nintendo game virtually. And now you can sell a Wii U on eBay for $10,000 because it has all the games on it, right?
Yeah.
Galaxy brain move.
I mean, all those games are probably out there anyway. Not that I'm condoning emulation, but the emulation community has done a lot to preserve gaming. And Nintendo just I don't want to just pick on Nintendo. Sony is very bad. I think the only people that are doing it right is Microsoft. Again, we still don't really know what the hell Sony's doing with their online service.
Spartacus.
Yeah, so... But I mean, the thing that's so frustrating about Nintendo is that they had a really good online service and they just didn't bring it to the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Just why didn't you just bring it to the Switch?
Because that's not how they work, man. It's
I
not,
know,
it's not
right?
how it works. So, Keith, I appreciate you sharing with me your show and your experience with that. So, it's kind of bled into my next series of questions here, but I want to talk a little bit about you personally.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, so get ready for the most uncomfortable thing that everyone loves to do is talk about themselves, right?
Well, I am 5'11".
What is
180 pounds.
What's your sign?
I'm a Virgo.
Oh, okay. I'm a Taurus man myself.
Yeah, I prefer to go to bed by 10 p.m.
Oh, I've already been in bed for like an hour by the time you go to sleep, man. So what I wanted to ask to you is, obviously being a person, I've built the Unlockables podcast as a show where people come on and just talk about why they love games and what games has meant to them. So I wanted to ask you, what has gaming meant to you? What has it meant to you in your life? What kind of role has it played in your life?
So at an early age, I totally don't mean to steer off into this conversation, so I'll get off of it very quickly.
You can go wherever you want.
Are you sure about that?
That's why I leave the question so vague as it is, that people can talk about whatever aspects of it that they want to.
So from a very young age, I really got into JRPGs.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I as a child, which is funny because I read a lot now. As a child, I hated reading. It didn't matter what the fuck it was. I hated reading. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, I probably learned a lot from having to learn how to read JRPGs because they are very text heavy.
Right.
And not that like they're like these literary works of art or anything, especially like the ones in the 90s.
It's not like you're reading Shakespeare.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, but it did help. It did help, and God bless me for, actually kind of reading between the lines, especially when those games are like so poorly localized. But
yes, absolutely.
You can kind of figure it out. And so I think that's kind of like why I enjoy story in a game probably more than others do, just because from a young age, I just really enjoyed reading those stories and really just kind of being captured by them. Because a lot of the podcasts that I listen to that kind of do the same thing as me don't really talk about the stories ever. And I, as much story as there is in 8-bit games, which is to say that there isn't any, I try to focus a little bit on them. It's a lot easier to get into stories from games that came out in a modern age, like Hades. But yeah, I think that's kind of why I love stories so much in gaming. It's not like, at the tip, it's not like the most important to me. But man, it's really a treat when I'm like sitting there playing a game and I'm like, oh, okay. So here's a good example. Spoilers for Resident Evil 7 if nobody's played Resident Evil 7. Probably skip ahead maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. Do you care if I spoil Resident Evil 7 for you?
That's perfectly fine.
I guess I should ask that too.
I know it's also been part of your quest that you've assigned yourself is to somehow make sense of the entire Resident Evil franchise.
Yeah, I actually somehow care about the story of those games.
Oh, okay.
I did. And so I'm playing through Resident Evil 7, and essentially there is this, you're essentially captured by this family. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there is a grandma in the family, and she doesn't do anything in the entire game. Sometimes you'll like turn the corner in the house and she'll just be sitting in the hallway, just doing nothing. And it's really creepy too, because as you like walk by her, sometimes she'll like slightly turn her head, or you'll see like her eyeballs move to like look at you, but she doesn't do anything. Like the entire game, she doesn't do anything. And eventually, as the story opens up, you find out that there's this little girl who's essentially like a product of Umbrella, and this little girl's like essentially a bioweapon. And you go through like, you do eventually escape the house, you go through all this stuff, and you find yourself like in this quarry, and you're going through this tunnel, and it's already been like 6 or 7 hours into the game. You've gone through hell at this point. And you open up this shaft in the mine. And it's like this cellar. It looks like a cellar. And in the corner of the cellar is a wheelchair. I'm getting goosebumps.
Ooh.
Because when this happened, when I saw that wheelchair, I was like, oh, fuck. The little girl is the grandma. And sure enough,
man.
As you go back up through the house, because now you're in the house again. You've circled all the way back around after all this time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the one room that I was in that I kind of started everything in. And there's that revelation. And then at the beginning of the game, it's a Resident Evil game. So there's like things laying around, like pictures and documents and stuff that you pick up. And on one of the pictures that you can pick up at the very beginning of the game, it has the bioweapons number on the back of it, but you don't know what it is. You have no context for it at the beginning of the game. But once you're back in that cellar and you pick up that picture and you're like, oh my God, you have that revelation and you're just like, she's the grandma, the fucking grandma all along. Like
that's insane.
So it's stuff like that just that's what makes me love video games, when you're just like, you hit a moment and you're like, oh my God, like, all right, I feel that, you know? Forbidden West just came out, and I kind of had that moment too. Like, this isn't spoilers. This is very, very early on in the game,
Mm-hmm.
but you go to Meridian, which is like the big city or whatever from the first game, and there's like all these people there that you had quests with in the first game, and I'm like, I kind of feel like nostalgic for that game,
right? Even
though I just played it recently. But it's just one of those things where I'm just like, oh yeah, like I remember these people, like these are my friends. You know, like it's stuff like that kind of just brings me back to games over and over again. And even if it's not something that kind of hammers you over the head, like it could be something very subtle. Like there's plenty of games that I play that they're not in a series, but they're basically directed or produced by maybe the same director or the same developer. And there'll be like hints or like little references that some people might not get if they didn't play the other games, but if you did, it's kind of like a nice little treat.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, so stop me whenever you want.
No, that's absolute. This is absolutely what I wanted. So that's great. But that does segue nicely into my next question that I'm going to ask you about. One game that I know you've expressed very much love for, has all of those components to it, especially the story aspect of it, is a game that you've said is one of your favorite of all time, which is Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to ask you about that game specifically because I try to talk about people, the games that they really love and games that they say are their absolute favorite of all time. I know we've talked about this before. You've even done an episode on your show about your love for the original versus the remake. And so I just wanted to ask you a little bit about Seven. What is it about Seven specifically that you love so much, whether it be the story aspects and especially about that specific Final Fantasy and that kind of PS1 era of those Final Fantasies?
I'm not gonna lie, like it's just straight up, it was the perfect game at like the perfect time in my life. I had already, like, I was no stranger to like JRPGs or anything like that, but I mean, Final Fantasy VII was the game to get. I mean, those advertisements made it seem like it was going to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just nobody was talking. Like, I was playing JRPGs, but like nobody was talking about them. Like, nobody was talking about Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. I guess there's a good reason why nobody was talking about Mystic Quest. Nobody was really talking about Earthbound. Nobody was talking about Super Mario RPG. JRPGs just, they were not in the zeitgeist.
I was growing up during that. Was Super Mario RPG, was that before 7? In that timeline? I was like only like 5 or 6 at the time, so I don't. Okay, that whole area, like I explained, is very like all that kind of happened like at the same time for me because my brain was still like mashed potatoes. So
yeah, Final Fantasy VII I think was like maybe 8 or 9 months after Mario RPG.
Oh, wow.
Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I know it was after. So yeah, they just weren't in the zeitgeist, and I guess I was still kind of like too young to realize what Final Fantasy VII was because they don't tell you in the advertising.
Right.
It was just like, this is going to be the most cinematic thing you've ever seen. Fuck the movies. Buy this game. You're not even going to play it. You're just going to watch it. Look at these graphics. This is amazing. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then
you sold me.
Right. And when I got it, I was like, oh, it's just an RPG. Like,
right.
I didn't know what to expect. But at the time, I had a friend who was also very into JRPGs as well. So that also helped. And we would kind of, if I was like playing Earthbound, I keep going back to Earthbound. If I was playing Earthbound over here, he would come over and we would sit and just play Earthbound together. And if he was playing like Xenogears or something at his house, I'd go over there and play that with him, So it was like this huge trade-off or what. And then Final Fantasy VII was one of those games where I had it and he would come over. We would have like sleepovers every weekend up until like we beat it. And I also had the strategy guide for the game. And he was very much like, I guess, like the scholar between the both of us, because he would like read that thing front to back, know exactly like what's going to happen before I even get to it. And so he would kind of like help me and like guide me through or whatever. But it never seemed to ruin the game for him. It seemed like he was just as equally excited to actually see the events play out, because it's a little different than when it's written in the guide, right? So there's a lot of a context that isn't in the guide that obviously plays out in the game differently. And yeah, man, the music for that game. I still love that soundtrack.
Legendary.
Yeah,
Uematsu.
The story again. I wouldn't say it's ahead of its time, because obviously it's talking about bioterrorism and stuff like that, saving the world, which is stuff that we're very much dealing with today, which is ironic considering Square wants to get into NFTs. That's a whole other podcast.
Oh, man.
But yeah, and I guess just those memories that I forged with my friend playing through the game. There was a point where he moved before we even finished the game.
Oh.
And man, so I finished it without him, and I got to the final Sephiroth fight. And again, at the time, you have to remember, there was nothing like this game. Like, all the other JRPGs I had been playing were like these just pixelated Super Nintendo games, you know? And so I get to the final Sephiroth fight. It's this like very cloudy, but like bright kind of pink cotton candy background. And all of a sudden, like, this giant angel Sephiroth like drops from the sky, and you're killing God. you're fighting God as you do in a JRPG.
Hell yeah.
And all of a sudden the music starts playing. One Winged Angel starts playing. And it is unlike anything that you've heard in the soundtrack up to this point, because the soundtrack is very melancholic for the most part. It's not a lot of uplifting tracks in the game. Not to say that One Winged Angel is uplifting in any sense of the word at all. But it is just this, like, you're fucked. Like, as soon as you hear that music play and you see Sephiroth, you're like,
no.
Fuck. And like, in hindsight, now that I'm older, like, you could beat Sephiroth in like 3 moves, but it ends up being like a pretty easy final boss. But at the time, I'm like, what do I do? You know, and I'm like, I don't have my friend here to kind of help me guide me through the battle. He doesn't let me know there's about to be like a 10-minute summon that Sephiroth uses that's going to destroy the solar system. That was the other thing too. Like, it was a movie within the fight.
Right.
You know, you're seeing this giant meteor fly through the solar system, destroying all these planets, and yet your team survives it. It hits Earth, but doesn't do anything to it.
Giant space rocks can't defeat the power of friendship, Keith.
That's very true. Right. Yeah. Well, I would like to think that all the other planets softened the meteor up a little bit.
Yeah. They were friends of the Earth. That's why it's the true power of friendship.
And then I beat the game, and it has one of those endings, and it's the type of ending that really makes me hate all of the spin-offs that have come after it.
Right.
Because it just ruins the ending of this game. But the entire end of the game is basically this 20-minute cinematic. And I'm like, I have to show my friend this. Like, I have to go out of my way. He has to see this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I basically like begged my parents to drive me to his house. And I brought the game over, popped it in, played like the entire, because there's 3 fights at the end of that game. There's Genova and then like 2 forms of Sephiroth. Played all 3 of those fights for him, watched the ending, and it was so gratifying, and he was so excited to finally end this journey that we had been on together, you know, playing this game. And it's just the way that game ends on just like, you don't get any answers, you know, you don't know what happened, you know. And I kind of like when endings are open-ended. I'll take a ending that kind of closes everything up as long as it does it well. But something about like leaving the ending up to interpretation, I find really cool. And I think that's also why I enjoy that game so much, because who knows what could have been. But we know what could have been, and apparently everybody just gets cancer or something. And Sephiroth ends up actually surviving, but also he's like Cloud's figment of imagination, like he's PTSD essentially. But also now they exist in an alternate universe by cloud demons. I don't know.
That's another nice segue. So I was going to say too, not a lot of us have had the experience of having our favorite game from our childhood remade. And that is something that you had to go through. So I was going to ask you, and I know you did an episode on the 7 remake. So what is that like to have something that you have, like all these fantastic memories, which I appreciate you sharing with me, of this game from your childhood, and then to have this remake version come out where they're obviously going to split it out into as many games as possible to make as much money as possible, as well as, you know, our wonderful chief belt designer Nomura helming the project. What has that kind of been like? Not to put you in a bad place. It's just something I knew I wanted to pick your brain about, because I can't imagine what my feelings would be like if they remade, like, my favorite game is Final Fantasy IX. I can't imagine what that game would look like remade. I can't imagine what my feelings would be like towards that game if it was remade in a similar aspect. Now I feel like we're gonna end on a really bad note. God damn it.
Dude, you make me feel all good inside, like I'm wearing a nice warm blanket, thinking about 1997 all over again, and now you make me think about 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. Oh, man.
So yeah, I did do an entire episode on the remake because, of course, as you might be able to tell from just listening to me waxing poetically about my time with the original game, I had a lot of opinions on that, so I had to get them out. And it's funny, because we were just talking about earlier I was just saying earlier how a lot of people ignore the good things I say about a game. But when a lot of people listen to my episode on remake, they're like, I can't believe you said all that. I'm like, yeah, but what about the other 40 minutes where I like praised it?
Right. Like, exactly. And you do a good portion of that. You really do.
That was an interesting episode because I didn't know how to take it. So I was like, all right, I would just split it into pros and cons. Keep it simple. Because I had so many thoughts on my mind. And I was like, that's the only way I could keep them concise, was just to split it up, the good and the bad. But, yeah, man, I mean, it goes back to E3 2005, right? Square shows that tech demo on the PS3, the Final Fantasy VII tech demo for the PS3. And that's when it starts, you know? And much like today, there were rumors that Square was working on a remake. And that's kind of where it started. And then nothing happened for a very, very long time until... That
period of Square, a lot of weird stuff happened, because that was kind of the same time they were supposed to be working on Versus 13, and that project kind of got shut down and turned into like 15 and a bunch of different projects. So there's some weird shit going on.
Yeah, they were working on like 7 different Final Fantasies at the same time, and they like announced all of them at the same time.
Very weird.
What's happening? Like, how did we jump from Final Fantasy 11 to 15?
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
And ever since that time, Nomura's just been taking out his revenge on not getting his Versus 13 project by doing all this other crazy shit. So
yeah. So then, it wasn't 2016 that it officially got announced as Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's the actual name of the game. And I didn't cry. I did not cry. But my ex at the time, who had like no idea about like video games, probably had no idea why I was like, oh my God, they got the fucking, and they're doing the thing, and they got Sephiroth, and you saw Cloudy at the Buster Sword, oh my God, and there was Barrett, and she was probably like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Is he okay?
And yeah, man, I was over the moon. Probably an understatement. I probably had a nice little like pep in my step that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we didn't hear anything again until like 2019, and then they like, I think Square posted like a picture, and that was it.
Yeah, we still are doing this.
Right, yeah. It was like me and, everybody else were like, okay, this is going to come out in like 2035 or something like that. Like, they're not actually doing anything with this because of just what you said. They were doing some just really weird shit with Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling. And now we're in the same position now with Final Fantasy 16. It's like, is that game coming out?
Is it actually real?
Like, you announced it and haven't talked about it in like a good 2 years at this point. So, yeah, man. I mean, honestly, if your listeners are listening to this and they want me to go down that road again, just listen to my episode on it. I felt very nostalgic at points. There was a lot of me kind of reliving what I had just talked to you about a couple minutes ago. A lot of me wondering, I have lost contact with that friend. We kind of stopped talking to each other around high school. Because again, he moved. So he was, at those times, we didn't have cell phones. So it was very hard to, get into contact with. And so it was just a lot of me thinking like, man, does he still play video games? Is he playing this now? And like having kind of the same reaction I am, as just kind of remember sitting there like fucking around and playing the game, the original. I remember specifically playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was like very late at night, and I was just kind of like laying on the couch, and it's when you're in the slums, kind of like when you first arrive in the slums. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just standing there and panning the camera around, just looking at the environment, because I'm like, this is something, as a child, I thought I would never see this game like this. Which is just like, also like, so there's something to be said about, high fidelity graphics, because we mentioned how far technology has come. It seems like for as long as video games has existed, the medium has been around, the people that are playing them, a majority of them want high fidelity graphics. They want something more real. You look at, keep talking about Earthbound, but you look at a game like Earthbound, and at the time, people were like, what is this fucking kiddie ass game? Like, this looks so old. This looks so dated. I want to play Final Fantasy VI. That looks like an adult game. It looks a lot more real. It looks darker, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then same thing with Wind Waker. Everybody wanted like a more realistic, darker, gritty Zelda.
Like Twilight Princess, right?
Yeah, but they got Wind Waker instead, and people got mad. And as absolutely gorgeous as Final Fantasy VII Remake is, I can't help but think how boring it is at the same time, because it is just realistic interpretations of those 1997 polygons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there was going to be an actual remake and not a sequel, I wouldn't mind. I better be very careful with the words that I say, right? Because those pixel remakes are garbage from what I hear. But I would love to have like more not exactly like pixelated, not like Super Nintendo graphics, but I don't know, something more stylish. Something maybe like along the lines of like Hades or something. Something that a graphical style, like a style. You know, I don't want.
So would it be fair to say that, and I don't know why this kind of how they did the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl remake, where they kind of, it's the same game, but they kind of changed up the style a little bit. Like they kept the spirit and the core of the game like intact, but they did like just a little bit better of an art style with it, like something like that.
What about Link's Awakening? The Link's Awakening remake.
Okay, yes, that
I feel like
too.
that's like.
That was a great one. I enjoyed that a lot.
I would say that's like the perfect remake. I know a lot of people didn't like that game because it has some frame rate issues, but I personally don't really give a shit about that.
I'm not playing Switch games for frame rate. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you shouldn't be complaining about the frame rate if you're playing something on the Switch. But yeah, something just more stylized. Obviously, I mean, I guess I can't complain with what they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. But yeah, I guess I would want something more interesting, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. And I'm probably pretty picky when it comes to video games anyway. But
yeah. No, it does make sense.
I have so many mixed feelings about that game.
You should definitely, if you're listening, go listen to the episode because it's a really good episode. Definitely.
Yeah, I feel like I've been bamboozled by Tetsuya Nomura and Square Enix.
Not to be the first time that he's bamboozled us, but and it probably won't be the last. Definitely not.
No, probably not.
I'm shocked to know that man is like almost in his 60s. He does not look like he has aged at all.
Well, it's because he's still wearing like Jinko jeans,
yeah, right.
Fucking Fubu jerseys and shit.
The tight belts around his waist just preventing his skin from sagging down. So it's got to be what it is.
It's like some Hellraiser shit.
Yeah, I think just to kind of sum up my feelings about that, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I think the most jarring thing to me about that game specifically is 7 is such an important game to so many people, and in gaming history, like. We as Westerners probably wouldn't be as accepting of JRPGs if it wasn't for 7. So the fact that, people growing up now, the first way that they're going to experience Final Fantasy 7 is the remake and not the original game is kind of mind blowing to me, because that game has like always existed in our zeitgeist. So the fact that people are going to be growing up and they're not. Today's generation, and here I go, I'm going to get off my rocking chair. Today's generation is spoiled with how good everything looks. They're not going to want to go back and play, the polygonal hell that game, looks like.
Yeah.
They're just not going to want to. So that to me is the main question of how will this game's legacy as, our generation ages and, eventually, not to get existential here, but dies. How will the history of that game be remembered since they're basically... doing remakes with it. So
it's available. Like, that's the best part. Like, you can get Final Fantasy VII on modern consoles, and for a long time
on anything that has a screen, pretty much you can get it on.
Yeah. So that's the great. And honestly, I mean, you should, if you've never played the original and you've played the remake, go play the original. It is a very different game. Has it aged well? Again, it's my favorite game of all time. Has it aged well? No. There's the graphics look different all the time depending on what you're doing. It's weird.
But at least those versions are rezzed up to HD, and they have options on those versions where you can turn on like unlimited health or to ease the combat, so you can play through and experience it, so you don't have to grind it the original way we did. So that game is much easier to experience now than it used to be, for sure.
So here's my question, because I know your favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy IX, and there was that NVIDIA leak where a lot of that stuff has come to fruition and has been announced, and on that leak was the Final Fantasy IX remake. will you be in the same boat as me in a few years?
I feel like I probably will be. And what leads more like credence to that theory is that they're doing also like that animated kids show based on 9.
Right.
So it seems like they're clearly gearing up for something like that. The other thing too on that NVIDIA leak was also like another Kingdom Hearts title, which if you've played the I'm going off the deep end. If you played the Remind DLC and Secret Movies and stuff, like that's very clearly confirmed that is in the works, and that looks to be like Nomura completely coked out of his mind. I feel like that's probably an inevitability is and I think at this point, now that people have seen the success of something like the 7 remake, I think anything that has any kind of nostalgic value, because what the corporations have figured out, okay, here we go. I'm throwing on my conspiracy hat. What the corporations have figured out, especially with our generation, is that we are willing to spend money on nostalgia. So now that they've seen the success of the 7 remake, I think anything is on the table that they think that they can like remake and sell to us, and we'll buy it because we're collectively having existential dread about us getting older, and we're like, oh shit, like when we want to relive our glory days, and so that's a way for us to do it. So yeah, I fully expect, and I've been slowly having to come to terms with that's gonna happen. So
yeah, I'm gonna be totally jealous if you get a straight up remake. I will be happy because I love Final Fantasy IX also, and I will probably get that. But I will be so angry. I will be like, why couldn't they do this to my game?
Right. I think it'd be more difficult to do something like they did with 7 remake to 9, just because they did 9 and then they didn't really do anything else with it. 7 has all this extra stuff around it. It has like, these extra games, these extra movies. So they had a lot of stuff that they could do with that. And 9 doesn't really kind of have the same thing. And not really any Final Fantasy after that, except for like 15 when they tried to do, here's like a movie and like a chibi and like a mobile game and like all these corporate tie-ins, and that game was just kind of a whatever the fuck they were trying to do with that.
I could see 9 being remade in like the style of like an Octopath Traveler or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see it being remade in like kind of like the chibi style as well, how they did Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because that game is already kind of like that. It has that weird like half stunted like kind of chibi but full size. The art style of 9 is fucking weird. I will admit that it's very strange, but when that day comes, I'll probably be mixed with a lot of the same feelings that you have, as well as with the fuck, I really am getting old.
Yeah,
like that'll definitely hit me. So,
what are the chances of in the part 2 of Final Fantasy VII Remake? What are the chances of Cloud and Sephiroth finally making out?
I would say at least 50%
because like they come pretty close in the remake, right? Like multiple times.
There is some very
everybody's horny in that game.
That is a very horny game. Even my wife, who caught myself there, even my wife my wife she sat down and she played that game with me, and she did not experience the original Final Fantasy before, because she's a few years younger than me. So even she's like, everyone in this game just like wants to fuck but like doesn't want to fuck it, and she's like, it's got a lot of weird like sexual energy. I'm like, it really does. So, and there's definitely that tension there. So I think if the fans want it, man, that would sell some copies. You'd have to think that would sell some copies for sure.
They have to go, because they're obviously not going to actually continue remaking the game. It's gonna just be its own thing.
It's got again,
which is why I keep calling it a sequel.
Right. Well, look what
is a sequel.
Look what they did when they put Sephiroth in Smash. They gave him like a shirtless version.
Dude, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, the second part, go full DeviantArt.
Definitely.
Like, just go.
Even Sakurai, when he was making that character, made him shirtless, and it was like, Sakurai was feeling a certain kind of way that day too. You knew he had to be. He was sweating a little bit. So. we're about out of time, but Keith, I just wanted to thank you for being the first guest, being the guinea pig in this experiment, and I really appreciate you coming on, and everything that you did was exactly what I was hoping this podcast would be, everything that you shared, so thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, I was worried because I'm like, I don't know if anything coming out of my mouth right now, one, makes sense, or two, if anybody cares about, but we'll find out, and
we will
honored to even be your first guest. Like I said, I have missed your beautiful voice in my ears for how I was sending you messages on Instagram being like, day 342 without the side questing podcast, and I would send you like a picture of like a skeleton. Like,
but you sent me a picture of like one time like cars burned out and there's like an empty street and you're just like the world's just like falling apart, and I'm just like, well, that's a bit dramatic, but I appreciate it all the same.
But yeah, man, it's awesome that you're finally coming back, and I'm excited for whatever the future holds for you and stuff like that. And I'm excited to have you back on my show eventually. So we have some stuff coming up this year that I'm very excited about. Might be killing a little bit of chaos later. That should be fun, you know? Absolutely.
not to give anything from your show away, but that is gonna happen, and we shall see.
Yeah, speaking of Final Fantasy and Nomura.
Right. So why don't you take this time? Obviously, I know we talked about your show kind of at the top of the show, but go ahead and just plug your stuff, man.
So if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably able to listen to podcasts. So just go in that search bar and type in the Main Quest podcast, and pretty much can be found anywhere. And if I'm not, you can contact me a couple of ways. You can email me, mainquestpod@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, which is the Main Quest. Shoot me some messages or whatever. If I'm not on PodSock or something, the PodSock app or something, I don't know. Let me know and I'll do my best to get the show on there. Otherwise, I assume you're probably going to have like my Linktree links in the show notes.
Oh, yeah, I probably should do that. That would be the responsible thing to do for sure.
So yeah, just go there. All that stuff is in there. Yeah.
Follow Keith on Twitter. He is a blast.
Don't. Questionable, but thank you. Yeah, you should do that. That's I don't even know what my Twitter handle is. It's in the Linktree.
It's in the Linktree. That's what the cool kids are doing nowadays. Yeah, and as far as for me, this has been the very first episode of the Unlockables podcast. You can find me on Twitter at @TheOneTrueSire, and the podcast is on Twitter, UnlockablesPod, and that is also for Instagram. Or you can email me, unlockables.podcast@gmail.com. And I'm really hoping one day for someone to just like send me some crazy email that I can read like on the show. That would be fantastic.
I always get so like sideswiped by emails where I'm just like, they always go to like a specific folder, and I see them way too late to even respond to them.
Like, oh, this person emailed me like 8 months ago. Whoops.
Yeah. Well, same thing goes for Instagram. Like they won't tell me that somebody messaged me, and they go into like a separate folder.
So that's why that explains why you haven't been talking to me.
Well, no, my question is now, do I keep talking to you on the side questing account or the Unlockables account? That's
something that I just experienced tonight, because I was trying to be all cool and post like a countdown to like Wednesday when I was going to release like the episode 0, but I got too antsy and just released it today. And so of course I've got like some people messaging me on the side questing one, which is where I talk to everybody. And then like Brian and Dave are messaging me on the Unlockables one. And then the guys over at Pixel Project Radio are messaging me on the side questing one. So I'm having to switch back and forth, and I'm like, oh man, this is like really uncomfortable. Okay. So I'm just keep track of all my conversations.
I'm going to officially, I'm stating it here on the podcast, move on over to the Unlockables account.
Oh no.
Because there are conversations that we just have to burn and let
we just have to get rid of the side questing one. Yeah, yeah.
There's a reason why you left the States and went to Mexico for a while. I know you said it was for your honeymoon, but I don't know, man.
Whenever my wife asks me, she's like, "Oh, you texting Keith again?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And I'm like, just dead face, like, "We're talking about video games, just video games, and nothing else."
Nothing else. No.
There's no conspiracies going on here at all. So, Keith,
what's this black van sitting outside the house?
It's just the Amazon guy. He's delivering something. Don't worry about it. Keith, thank you again, sir. We're gonna wrap it up. But again, thank you so much for being my first podcasting friend and being the first guest of this new adventure that I'm on. We'll see where it ends up taking us. And I'm sure I will be calling on you many, many more times to come on the show and talk about more random stuff.
Yeah, you got it, man. Yeah, whenever.
Excellent. And thank you guys for listening so much. This has been the Unlockables podcast. And make sure you guys take it easy and have a good day.